Hey guys, it's Lily again. I did a kind of general search for some really common food additives, what they're added to, why they're added, and so yeah, let's talk about it. So first up, sodium benzoate, sometimes referred to as E211, is used in soft drinks, fruit juices, pickles, and salad dressings. Something interesting about sodium benzoate, though, is that there were a bunch of drinks in the 1990s and 2000s, early 2000s, that were discontinued because they discovered that when you mix vitamin C, especially in acidic beverages, and expose it to heat, light, or long storage, it reacts with the sodium benzoate, creating something called benzene, which is a known carcinogen. So they would mix the drink and be like, it's safe, but then they would store it and then it would get to the consumer and it would contain this carcinogen that people were directly consuming. So they actually had to pull off shelves some drinks and redo the formula. Most companies just avoid using vitamin C with benzoate to prevent this chemical reaction. And those who do use it still have such a small amount of it that it can't create that chemical reaction. The second one I'm going to talk about is potassium sorbate, sometimes referred to as E202. It's used in cheese, yogurt, dried fruits, baked goods, and some wines. It's supposed to prevent mold and yeast growth. One of the side effects of this was like irritated eyes, and I was like, why? How is that connected to your eyes? So I dug into that more. And potassium sorbate is an effective low toxicity preservative, but at very high concentrations, it acts as a weak acid that can irritate tissue. So the sorbic acid disrupts the cell membrane in your systems, acting as an antimicrobial action. And at stronger doses, so whether it be you consuming more of it or just at a higher percentage in the product, it can irritate human skin, eyes, or mucous membranes. And so, especially in cosmetic products, such as like makeup, when you're putting it on your face, it's really close to your eyes when it's being absorbed into your body. Calcium propionate is sometimes referred to as E282. It's used in it's used in bread, other baked goods, and some dairy products. It's supposed to prevent mold and bacteria growth, and it's safe within regulated limits, of course, as they all say they are. But a few studies have linked it to migraines or hyperactivity in some insensitive individuals, though evidence to test this has been inconclusive. Sodium nitrate is sometimes called E250 or E251, and it's used in processed meats. It's supposed to preserve the color, so it's supposed to keep it that bright red color, like ground beef usually. Thing I specifically looked up because I'd kind of heard something about it, but I wasn't positive exactly how it worked, was I knew something was added to meats to keep it like a bright red color. So I looked it up. The gas, sodium nitrate, sometimes called E250 or E251, is used in processed meats to preserve the color, and it prevents botulism. And so while this works for visual appeals that you buy the product, obviously, too much consumption puts you at risk of consuming nitrosamines. So what happens is sometimes the nitrate can react with the amines present in the meat and create nitrosamines, which is a compound that is a known mutagenic and carcinogenic. Nitrosamines are linked to stomach, colon, and pancreatic cancers, and risk increases with overcooked or charred food, and manufacturers actually add vitamin C or E to prevent the nitrosamine formation. Consumers can reduce risk by avoiding high heat charring and limiting processed foods. So try not to burn your steak. The next one is sulfur dioxide and then some sulfates. So anything from E220 to E228 is used in dried fruits, wines, and fruit juices, and it's supposed to prevent browning and microbial spoilage. However, they have found some evidence that these sulfates can trigger asthma or allergic reactions in sensitive people. BHA and BHT are used in snacks, butters, cereals, chewing gum to prevent fats and oils from becoming rancid. So the FDA has approved low doses of this, of course, assuming you're only consuming that one serving every so often. But the FDA has approved low doses of this when animal studies have linked high doses to carcinogenic effects and human evidence remains limited and inconsistent. Sodium metabisulfate. Sodium metabisulfate. Sodium metabisulfate. Sodium E223. is used in wine, dried foods, and potato products. It's supposed to be an antioxidant and an antimicrobial, but it has shown to show asthma-like allergic reactions in sensitive individuals. So those were all chemical preservatives. I'm going to talk about a few natural preservatives that you may not necessarily see listed the way they are. So salt obviously is sometimes listed as NaCl, a chemical compound, and it's used a lot in cured meats and pickles. Obviously, it draws out moisture to inhibit microbes. Sugar, which is sometimes referred to as glucose, is used in a lot of jams and jellies. A lot of it is used in jams and jellies to create high osmotic pressure, preventing microbial growth. Vinegar, sometimes referred to as acetic acid, is in pickled vegetables, obviously. It lowers the pH, inhibiting bacteria. Citric acid is used in fruity drinks and candy, and it's a natural acid that slows spoilage. Rosemary extract and tocopherols, or vitamin E, is used in oils and snacks, and it is antioxidants that slow fat oxidation. Next, I looked into corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup. So corn syrup is a sugar syrup made by breaking down corn starch. It adds chewiness and prevents sugar crystallization. Primarily glucose is not very sweet. It's also used for texture and moisture in candies and baked goods. High fructose corn syrup is a corn syrup enzymatically converted to contain fructose, which is a sweetener. This is often listed as HFCS42, which is 42% fructose and 58% glucose, often used in baked goods, or HFCS55, which is 55% fructose, 45% glucose, used in soft drinks. Those two things, the 42% fructose is going to be what's chemically altered, and the glucose is what's naturally occurring. So comparing these, the main sugar compound in corn syrup is sugar, but in high fructose corn syrup is a mix of sugar and the chemically altered one. The sweetness of corn syrup isn't as sweet as high fructose corn syrup. Regular corn syrup is used for texture, moisture, and candy, whereas high fructose corn syrup is used as a sweetener in sodas and snacks. Corn syrup can be processed by all of your body cells, whereas high fructose can only be processed by the liver. And the only concern with corn syrup is the extra calories if it's overused, but the high fructose corn syrup is linked to metabolic issues, obesity, and insulin resistance. So essentially, corn syrup, not bad. It's used for texture and mild sweetness. High fructose corn syrup is sweeter and a cheaper sugar substitute. So both are fine in small amounts, but excessive high fructose corn syrup can contribute to metabolic disorders. All of this to say, in summary, when reading your ingredients, looking at your preservatives, you're like, what is that? Anything with E numbers is some kind of preservative. Obviously, the FDA has approved them all for a certain amount of consumption, but that's also assuming you trust the FDA and also saying they've approved it in that serving size. When it comes to meats, prefer fresh or minimally processed, store foods properly, and people with asthma or sensitivities should limit sulfates and nitrates as they've been linked to reacting to that. How do you know if you have asthma or sensitivities? I mean, I guess you know if you have asthma, and you just find out if you have food sensitivities as you're eating. Yeah. So that was a little bit more into food preservatives, chemical and natural. Have you heard of these? Do you check your food preservatives? Do you care about your food preservatives? I don't know. Drop a comment. Let me know. Till next time. Bye!